1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 et merde.
Ah, t'es différent, Daniel.
Je veux pas être différent, je veux être comme tout le monde.
La braille est ouverte du coup. Le copain, il a un nom.
Ah oui, Gaswell.
On évolue dans un contexte merdique, on peut pas s'épanouir.
Cet été, on se taille.
Si on y ajoute des roues, qu'est-ce que ça fait? On se fabrique une voiture.
Une maison avec des roues.
Exactement.
Ça fait peut-être un peu beaucoup les géraniums.
Bah, je sais pas si c'est une idée de génie ou si c'est complètement débile. Ça fait tellement amoureux, Daniel. C'est quand même très compliqué comme mec.
Mais laisse-moi tranquille!
Ça t'est arrivé d'avoir une indépendance absolue?
T'arrêtes pas, accélère!
Ajustons nos montres.
Thanks, everybody. Michel, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I had the chance to watch this movie last night, and it was one of the sweetest experiences I've had with a movie in a really long time. It's absolutely wonderful. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
I know that the film takes place in Versailles, France, which is a suburb of Paris where you're from, right? Where you grew up.
Yes.
How much of this film is autobiographical for you, and what made you, after having worked with screenwriters like Charlie Kaufman, doing experiments like The We and I, making comedies like Be Kind and Rewind, maybe want to sort of go back and do something more autobiographical, if it was?
Yeah, it is autobiographical.
It's about you.
Yeah, all the first half of the film are a collection of events that really happened to me and to my friend. So after working with Charlie Kaufman and doing movies like Block Party or The We and I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think of what's left for me to say, and I look in the back of my head, and I mean, I think basically, and for this movie, I started to think of the friendship I had over the years, to what classmate I would communicate or get close, and I realized they were always the most outcast, and even more than that, they were living very weird or hard condition. Like you see, Theo, his father is a brocanteur, antiquaire, and they live in this sort of mess. And I had a friend that was living like that. So basically, I was always interested into a friend who had this sort of weird background, and I just started to think of why it was happening like that, and I just realized they were much more interesting. It was not by pity or anything like that. It happened that they were much more interesting than the average kid in my classes every year. So I decided to focus on that and develop a story based on this type of relationship.
It seemed to me, and I was saying this before, and I could be wrong, that your filmmaking, your narrative movies, in many ways, it seemed like what you wanted to say sort of came out of the technique that you also wanted to work with and try as a filmmaker. And with this story, it felt to me that the technique was really born out of what you wanted to say. Did it feel differently for you?
No, it's correct. I wanted this film to be far away from any visual spectacle and effect. And when I found those two kids, which took me a month, they were not actors, and one of the two had played in one movie, but we really found them in street casting, and they were so good that I didn't want to. I just wanted to let them play their part, and the camera would just be there to capture what was going on. And so we only shot with one lens, and so to really get as sober as we could, so their performance comes across more strongly.
Well, they're both fantastic, and they're born for the camera. You kind of can't take your eyes off of them on screen. They're totally born for the camera. And as much as you say you wanted to get away from focusing on the visuals, I still think with that one lens that you shot on, it's beautiful to look at the way that you framed these kids and shot them.
Well, of course, if you decide to use only one lens, on the one hand, it's the most discrete aesthetical aspect you can get, but on the other hand, it's still a statement. So, because generally movies are shot with many different lenses, with the camera in different position, and here, in the decision to shoot it in a very sort of classical and sober way, that's a statement. So you get an aesthetic.
I feel like cinephiles, or people who love movies, a lot of times have great affection for movies about children in the history of cinema. There's only been a few that have really captured childhood very well. Truffaut has done it well, and then you have the movies of very wayward youth, like Larry Clark's work or something along those lines. And there's something about what a narrative movie can capture about the innocence of childhood that other art forms can't. Did you look at a lot of influences? Did you have any sort of influences as far as movies and that told the stories of children that you looked at?
Well, I didn't look for inspiration really, because that was mostly event that I lived. That was character that I knew. I just, for instance, I was a little worried about how to shoot scene in a school, the schoolyard with animation and in a classroom. So I watched this movie that's called Diabolo Monte. It's a very prominent film from the 70s.
Which movie?
Diabolo Monte by Diane Curis.
Oh, okay.
It's a landmark in this genre in France. So I look at that not to see the style or the aesthetic, it's just to see how you make it look real. When you have 20 kids instead of 100, for instance, this type of technical stuff. I look at the Little Fugitive, which is a...
Little Fugitive? Yeah.
Yeah. Because same things they shot with one camera, one lens, and there were a lot of scenes that were stolen. I mean, most of the scenes were stolen, and it was full of life. And I knew this was a movie that greatly influenced French Nouvelle Vague. But I mean, the 400 Blows by Truffaut, I know it by heart, so I didn't look at it again.
Yeah, I think when I always think of the great sort of cinematic statements on childhood, it's like, yeah, it is like 400 Blows or Small Change, right? His one of his later films about children. Now, when it came to casting this, you said it took a month, or it took months to find these kids and you did street casting. Now, for a film that's sort of autobiographical or about you, did you find it difficult to not cast someone that looked like you as a child? Did you find yourself at times accidentally thinking like that's not enough like me?
Well, there were a bunch of parameters to gather so we could tell the story. So it has to be Daniel. He has to be quite small. He had to have long hair, and he had to have thin lines so he could pass for a girl at times. And of course, he had to have the right personality and be a good actor. I mean, be good in front of the camera. So that was a lot to combine. So that was very hard to find. So I interviewed maybe 60 to 100 kids. And what I did is, like, first I didn't want them to act or do anything like that. I just interviewed them on their family, on who they were, what they like, and little by little, he was really funny, this Daniel, and so I took him back, I brought him back, and then we got closer to the story, and then a third time on a bit closer, and then he started to act with other actor to play the part. And the beginning was really a catastrophe because he had done theater at school where you have to project a lot, and it was hard to ask him to get rid of that. But then we found a great Theo, and we put them together, and immediately it started. I mean, they were literally reading the screenplay, and you could not feel they were reading. They were just being those guys.
When did you come up with the idea? Obviously, you said the first part of the movie is autobiographical, but where did the idea come from for this sort of the literal and metaphorical home away from home that they build and take on the road?
Well, we had with this friend, we had planned to build a car, and in my head I remember how the car looked, and the idea would be we would go in the mountain and across France with this car. We didn't do it. We made many other things, but not the car. So, I mean, then after, it's just my imagination. I have no idea how it came to me. I mean, it's not necessarily the most crazy or genius idea. It's like a snail, basically. You have the house that moves with you, and it's a most silly way to disguise a car. So I don't know. I mean, it felt funny and right to me, so I just did it. I don't have any more metaphorical explanation.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like one of those things that you come up with, and you're like, oh, that makes sense. These kids would want to take a home with them, or they would want to have a home. That's what looks like a home, you know?
Yeah.
A very sort of basic idea of it.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's completely ridiculous, which is fun to do.
What was it like for you as a filmmaker to go into a movie without sort of the usual sort of like visual planning that you have to have that goes into a movie? Because, I mean, the pre-production on most of your movies, I would imagine, is pretty extensive considering what you have to pull off while shooting.
Well, it is extensive when there are scenes that combine all the departments, where there is a scene that there is a special effect, there is model, there is a art, there is a art direction, and of course acting. In this scene, so everybody is on the same page. I have to draw a storyboard, otherwise nobody understands what's going on.
You drew storyboards for this movie as well?
No.
Okay.
No, maybe 1 or 2 pages when it was complicated. For instance, when the car falls into the dam, so I had to do a little storyboard. But generally, when I shoot a movie, I had a bad experience in my first movie, for which I had drawn every single page of the script as a storyboard, and I realized it was not good for the actor because they felt a little trapped into all the corners of the frame. So after that, I really decided I would not do storyboard, especially for what concerned the actors. So on this movie, Microbe and Gasoline, I had no storyboard. I would know who would drive the car and who would be the passenger and vice versa. And I let them act, and it was part of the goal, is to not plan ahead too much. And as well, most of the film are shot with 2 cameras or much more, 9 cameras, and for this one, I mean, I just had finished Mood Indigo, in which I had like maybe sometime 10 cameras or I was
cameras?
Yeah, maybe not so much, but 7, let's say. And I was fed up with that, to have 2 units and to have to direct everybody at the same time. And at the end, there is not one camera who does exactly the shot you want. So I decided to do it with everything with one camera only. That was really refreshing, and I think it was the best for the acting.
When you go into when you go into a project like this that I guess working is different for you, it's a different workflow. Does that change your perception of yourself as a filmmaker, or does that just feel right for this project?
No, I think it changed me as a filmmaker. I mean, it's a new experience. There is a positive element, there is not so positive element, but yeah, I leave the project with something that has been added to me.
One of the things that I love about Microbe and Gasoline is that you're not precious with the two main actors, the 2 kids. They are sex obsessed. They are willing to fight. Sometimes they start fights. They don't, they start fights with each other. They hit other people. They misunderstand each other. They misunderstand adults and other people. They're not too cute. They're not overly cute or precious. Was that something that was sort of difficult for you to maintain in the writing process? Because when you write kids, it seems that you want to kind of get across how innocent they are or what's happening with the story, that you might accidentally fall into writing preciousness.
Well, in a way it was simple, because I don't think I think differently than those kids. Well, on one hand, it was because I lived that. That was my obsession, my worries, and unfortunately, they didn't really change much. So when you get to become an adult, you change the way to speak. But I think you still have in your mind the same issues, and maybe you hide them a little more. So to me, it was very easy. I mean, especially for Daniel's character. And once you know a character and you write a screenplay, it speaks on its own. It starts to take a life on its own and speak and the line write themselves. And then you imagine the other character, which was Theo, and it's a combination of different friends I had, and the same thing happened. I mean, from one question that Daniel will ask, I hear the answer that Theo will give. I mean, it's like if you have an argument in your head, I mean, it happened to me all the time. Like, I'd have a problem, let's say, with my girlfriend or with somebody. So I do the question and answer in my head, like if the scene would happen right there. And I think that's the same when you write a story. So that's things that I'm still feeling. And I guess that's probably why it doesn't sound like an adult finding words to fill up the mouth of children, which we see a lot. And I have to say, in some American movies where they like to see the kids behaving like adults.
It's awful in American movies when there's the precocious child that's far too precocious for their age. I'm curious, you've made movies with big A-list stars like Jim Carrey, Jack Black, Seth Rogen. I mean, The Green Hornet alone was just like a massive undertaking, a studio movie. And then you've also made movies like The We and I and Microbe and Gasoline, which are non-actors, kids that you found. What are some of the benefits or some of the positives and negatives of non-actors, child non-actors versus A-list talent?
Well, I think there is many great advantages. First of all, when you have an A-list actor, you don't cast, you don't audition. You take them, you hope they're going to say, okay, so you can get your movie done. And then it's a bet because you don't know in advance if the actor would fit the character. When you have a smaller budget with unknown actors, you can really do the work of casting and try many different actors or non-actors for the part. Like for Microbe and Gasoline, we had many kids coming and reading the part, and so when we decided on these two actors, we knew they were the best. And then after that, you can develop a friendship. There is not a sense of hierarchy or of like forced respect. I mean, of course there is a respect, and there is, but more than that, there is an attachment. There is a love that I feel toward those kids, and they have this toward me. So they become like close friend or family member. So if something is wrong, I can tell to them that was shit, and they don't get upset. I remember one scene where Daniel, who's called Ange, was terrible. I went to see my script because there were no producer on the stage, on the scene, and I said, that's horrible, that's really shit what we are doing. And Ange overheard me, and he really took it seriously. He really worked hard, and he made a great, the scene was great after that. So he was not, there is no ego. I think that's the key.
This is the second film that you've made in France in the past few years. Before that, most of your features were made in the U.S. There's been talk the last few years about the sort of the death of the small film in America, or how difficult it is to make an independent film or even a sort of independently minded studio movie. Are you in France making movies for a reason? Is it harder to make the kind of movies that you want to make in America now?
I don't feel this way. I mean, this movie was about my personal experience, and the road trip, for instance, it's not very far. It's 200 miles, but there is a lot of different landscape in 200 miles. But in America, if you do 200 miles, you have the same. The scale is much bigger.
In America, if you do 200 miles, you're going from one part of Massachusetts to maybe the other.
Yeah, exactly, and it's the same. Well, but that's not the most important. Most important thing was, well, in fact, I shot the house of Daniel. We used the house of my grandparents from when I was a kid, which was identical to our house because they were built on the same lot. So when you're in the garden, you can see the house where I lived. I used to live until I was 18. And even the hole, they make a hole in the wall. It still exists in the other house.
He's shooting spitballs at it? Yeah. So do you find the film industry in America hasn't changed so much for you? If you wanted to be making movies here, you essentially would be?
I don't know. I feel outside of all that to have an opinion. What I see, like everybody must see, it's like this superhero thing. It's more and more. It's inviting the movie world. That's a bit scary, I think. Yeah. But for the rest, it's hard for me. I know I've heard that you can either do very small movie or very big, but it's in between that's very hard.
I have to ask, today, and I did this last time I interviewed you, I go back and I watch your music videos because they're fucking incredible. Like what you did on some of your music videos. Oh, I'm sorry. It doesn't like me to curse, excuse me. But I like one that I always go back and watch. Well, one, the Kylie Minogue video that you did, and then also Lucas with the Lid Off, which I think was maybe one of your first, or close to one of your first, which the technique is unbelievable. If anybody's ever seen this music video, it's seemingly one shot going from all these different frames, viewing action, and the Lucas with the lid off, the guy, from what is it? What? Lucas? He's just going around. I mean, and the choreography is insane, and I can't imagine the amount of preparation it took to get that right and how much work it took on the day to get that right. Do you ever go back and watch your music videos and just go, oh my God, I can't believe I pulled that off?
If I would do it, I would not say it. But it's a long time I've seen this one, but I remember very well. That was 18th take we used.
19th?
18th.
18th. Did you do 18 takes or did you do 20?
No, yeah, we continued because we didn't know. We stopped after a while because it was getting less and less good. And it's always the same when you do the one-shot video or for a movie. It's like you think you missed it. And it's getting worse and worse, so you have to stop. But then you look at the dailies, at the shot, and there is one shot that you forgot about. It's like 3 shots before that was perfect, or nearly perfect. But what's great into this type of shooting is that everybody is involved directly into the shot, into the result. So let's say, of course, you have the Steadicam operator, you have the DP who's going to move the light on and off at the right time. We had some people who would move mirror, some people would start projection, some people would stop projection. I mean, there were like 15 or 20 people working live on the scene. And what happens is like each shot, you see what's wrong and everybody adjusts to solve the problem, and then it's getting better, and then everybody tune up more and more until everybody is perfect. And there is such a concentration of energy, and it's like an explosion of joy where the thing is perfect and everybody has contributed and can see what his or her contribution is. For the shot. As for a normal shot, I mean, everybody works together, but you don't know if you did something good or bad. You will know it after the editing, and maybe you will never see it. But when you do a one-shot video, you can see it right away because you watch the take after each take, and everybody is directly involved, so you get an amazing amount of dedication and energy.
When you say you used the 18th take and you did a few more after that, how many of those takes were technically, or on the technical side, usable? In the sense that the camera didn't hit something or miss focus, or, you know, did you have like 22 solid takes where all the choreography essentially worked and you just used the best one of that?
No, there are some, we didn't even finish them.
Oh, you would just...
And then it's too frustrating that there is something wrong. I mean, even in the one I picked, there is a little detail where Lucas is behind another character, and each time I see it, it's bugging me.
I want to ask really fast about the Kylie Minogue video, because I watched it this morning as well. How did you do that? How did you... Has anyone ever seen the Kylie Minogue video, right? Where there's just 4 Kylie Minogues walking in a circle around a block and they're dancing around each other? I mean, obviously a little bit of green screen went into that, right? Or how exactly did you do that?
We didn't use green screen. We use post-production. So what happened is like you take a motion control, which is a crane that can record the motion and do it again and again. So we ask her to turn around and we follow her with the camera, recording the motion. And then after the little complicated trick was at the end of the motion of the camera, we had to go seamlessly back to the first position. So it would be a perfect loop that you would do.
So, and now I get it. It makes perfect sense now. It's 4 shots that you're and the first 3 you're looping, and you're adding little...
No, it's one shot. Oh. It's one shot, and you follow Kylie, like she's walking around, so follow her. And then when we do the second loop, you keep following her, but then in post, you bring back the one that you shot before, in the same shot.
Yeah.
So it's only one shot, and she turned around 4 times, and then we superpose the fourth time at the end. First time she's alone, second time she's two, third time she's three.
Could you see, were you superimposing while you were on set? Like, could you see in the monitor what you were doing, or did you have to wait till you got back to the edit room to see if all of them sunk up together?
I don't remember. It's 17 years.
No, I know. So
It's possible, but I don't
woke
think
up this
so.
morning where you're like, oh, great, I'm going to talk about the Kylie Minogue video in detail this afternoon.
The truth about this video, I have to confess, it's a bit of a rip-off of a short film called Tango by Zbig Rybinski, a Polish director that was an avant-gardist video artist. And he had done this film where people would go inside and out a house with a little routine, and there were more and more people, and at the end there were like 40 people in the house. So it's different because it's moving, but I have to say it's a derivation of this video. And I met this director, Zbig, and I confessed him. And he knew he had noticed already, and he said, "It's okay, I'm glad you tell me." He forgive me.
I'm going to open it up to the audience for questions. Questions?
Hey, Michel. Thank you
Hi.
for being here. How long did it take to build the house car in this movie, and were there any problems on the road with it?
Well, I have a very good art director with a very good team of mechanics and so on. So it was pretty fast. I remember going to visit the workshop, and he had told me, and it was outside actually, he had told me, don't expect the house to roll. And it was actually rolling. He had made a surprise for me. So he worked well, but there were many times things we didn't expect, like the wheel would go like that, and we have to change direction on some part. And the amazing thing is like just after we finished the very last shot of the car, all the fuse, all the electricity system blew up in a big bang like that. That was the very last shot, so we are lucky.
Next question?
Hi, as a big fan, I was just wondering, since you're one of the most imaginative directors out there, have you ever been told there's something you could not do?
Oh yes, all the time, which makes me want to do them more.
Do you have an example?
Well, it's an example, but it's bad because I should have listened. For Mood Indigo, most of the short people told me you can't do that, and I think, and I still did them, but I think I should have listened to those people a little bit more.
Wasn't there, there's a story that I'm remembering with Eternal Sunshine where the producer of the movie, Anthony Bregman, right? Is the
Yeah, and
producer?
Steve Golin was two producers.
Was it Anthony and Ted?
Anthony Bregman and Steve Golin and Ted,
Right.
not Ted Hope, but...
But one of them, I think Bregman takes credit for maybe having said to you, we can't do this stuff digitally, we don't have the money, but we should do everything in camera. And that was sort of what made you sort of the impetus to do all of the sort of visual effects in camera on set. It was...
Well, it's different, and the story is different. And okay, I had many crazy and complicated ideas for the transition, and they were not all CGI. Most of them were still practical, but way too complicated. And then it's true, they were a lot digital. And then 2 weeks before the shooting, they told me, you can't do that. It's not possible, you don't have the money. And I called Charlie, I remember, and I was completely panicked, devastated, and so on. And he told me, maybe it's bad for good. You have to rethink the transition and make them more simple. And that's what I did. And I think in doing that, I let the film breathe more. And it became not something technical, it became something about feelings and the story and the character. But there were one occasion where they told me I couldn't do it, and I still did it. It's when we went to Montauk to shoot this part of the movie, we arrived there and it was completely covered by snow. And we didn't expect that. But it was amazing because the snow would really arrive exactly where the water stops. It was like the beach were completely white with a great amount of snow. And it looked amazing, so I wanted to shoot there. But like Anthony Brinkman and Steve Golin told me, no, you can't do that because you need 3 days to shoot it, and from tomorrow on, the snow will melt, so you have no continuity. And then I really wanted to do the scene with the snow. So I told them, okay, if we can shoot the 3 days in 1 day tomorrow. So there is 2 advantages. First, it's going to look great, and 2, we're going to save 2 days on the schedule.
And the producers were like, yes.
Well, they didn't believe. And first, we had to ask Jim Carrey to learn lines for a scene that he was not supposed to do the next day. And eventually, we did it. And it looks great, of course. And so this time I was really right. And the scene, the shot you see at the end of the film where they keep running away, it's a shot we did. They were supposed to come toward us, but I didn't want to see their step in the snow. So I asked them to run away on the side, so then they could turn around and come back. And they didn't mess up the snow. And so we roll the camera because you never know, and then we use this shot for the end.
And you became a producer's dream director. You shot something beautiful and saved them money.
I know.
I think we have time for one more question.
Okay, hello. First of all, thank you for doing what you do because your idea is a genius, I think. And I have 2 questions. First, what do you look for in actors? Like, what characteristics should they have as person or an actor? And second, in music, like, what inspires you and how do you choose which musicians do you like to work with?
Well, the first question, what do I expect from an actor? I don't really like the actor who put too much of a performance. Like the actor that disguise themselves with prosthetic or affect their voice to become somebody else. I prefer actors who are closer to themselves when they act. I think the actor should be should be in the middle between who they are in real life and who the character is in the story or in the script. And so they should meet in the middle. So you're going to change a little bit the character in the story, and they're going to change a bit their personality from real life. And I think that's how I envision the acting, because it's like actors who have to take accent. So people think of the virtuosity of doing that, but to me it masks the honesty, the touching element of acting. So I prefer somebody who's not gonna mimic, or people who embodies famous people. They'll watch too much. They are the model, and then they mimic the person, and then there is not much underneath the surface. And the second question was what?
Music. I mean, you could talk about choosing the musician for this film.
Well, for this one, I had a dream about Charlotte Gainsbourg, which I know because we did Science of Sleep together. And when I woke up, I had this music that actually her mother, Jane Birkin, was singing. That goes do 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 do. That's a great music that she made with her husband, Serge Gainsbourg. But in fact, the melody and the arrangement was done by Jean-Claude Vannier. And there was something very nonchalant and sort of nostalgic in it, and that was Jean-Claude Vannier. So, and I know that Jean-Claude Vannier did all the score for Melody Nelson, which is a very landmark album, and he did many movies. So I reached out to him, and he said yes immediately. And I explained him what I was expecting from him, and that was it.
And the music in this film is wonderful. The melody or the theme that you use for when they really start driving around is great.
Yeah.
It complements the story very well.
I mean, I really like this moment because that was really the first time we had shot all the scene in Versailles, and that was the beginning of the trip. We had to shoot in order because of the hair and many things. Most of the scene I shot in order. So that was a moment where they left Versailles in their little house, and that was the first time they were really driving it at night with the camera. And when you see them smiling, they are not acting anymore. They really saying, "Oh, that's great, that's cool." And with the addition of this music, it's really a nice moment, I think.
And at the risk of sounding corny, I think it comes across. Like, I was smiling like that when I was watching that scene.
That's not corny.
When can people see Microbe and Gasoline? When will it be out for folks to see?
This week, I think.
This week?
This weekend.
This weekend. Guys, go see Microbe and Gasoline. It's Michel Gondry, and it's really fantastic. Michel, thank you.